Music plays such an important role in this movie. We actually find out so much of the story, through music. Can you tell us about your choice of using music as an instrument to tell us?
Yeah, I've always liked music in film, as opposed to film music, music that has a dramatic role in the film. In Ida, it was quite a big deal, and Joanna sang in Ida. I don't know whether you remember, she was the pop singer. And in this film, I had the license to go much further, because the film is about two musicians, and music is what brings these two characters together and what keeps them together and what defines the different stages in their relationship. So we took a few tunes from Polish folk tradition that were sung by a folk ensemble, Mazowsze, a real folk ensemble that still exists today, that was founded in '49. And I took these three tunes and brought them back and asked the folk performers that you see at the beginning of the film to perform them in a kind of source, authentic way. And then I asked a jazz musician friend of mine to turn them into jazz numbers, into one of them is a bebop piece, that when we cut to Paris, that's what Victor's quintet is playing. And then the other two tunes become this beautiful jazzy chanson that Joanna sings so beautifully, Dwa serduszka and L'un de toi, L'un de toi. And all these tunes are rooted in Polish folklore, but we see the different permutations. And that helps us to see where we are in history, in geography, and also the different stages of the relationship of Victor and Zula. I mean, they come close together by the first kind of seduction scene is when Victor plays the chords for I Love You, Porgy, and makes her intuit the melody. And she does intuit, and then we know that there might be something magical between them.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I find it so beautiful that you find out about Victor's past, that he must have been in the West, because he plays Gershwin and he plays I Loves You, Porgy.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, he's in my kind of imaginary biography of Victor, which is never mentioned here. He studied music in Paris before the war, under Nadia Boulanger, for example, and he's a very well-educated jack of all trades in music, so he can do all sorts of things. So a lot is hinted at, so people, like a good audience like yourself, picks it up, that there's a kind of biographical information in the choice of music already, but also just the chemistry between them.
The music alludes to so many beautiful things about the film. It alludes to, as you mentioned, sex. It alludes to isolation and exile and just the isolation of the characters.
Yeah, and then the rock around the clock kind of puts a wedge between the lovers, clearly. He doesn't respond to it at all, whereas she's bored out of her head and just suddenly kind of drifts off and gets carried away by it. So that's a defining moment in that relationship.
Joanna, you've been in supporting roles in Pavel's films. You were in Ida and also Women in the Fifth as well. What was it like this role is so tempestuous, is so volatile. What was it like for you to tackle a role like this?
When I read the script, I was so happy, and I said, thank you because Pavel wrote this part for me. That's why for me, like the Woman in the Fifth and Ida, what I think now it was like some preparation for this part, because this part is huge, and I never heard such a huge part with dancing, singing, acting at the same time. That's why I was so happy, and I knew that this relationship is beautiful, strong, and at the same time we have wonderful music which show us that, especially Dwa serduszka, this is song exactly about Victor and Zula. That's why it helps me a lot, and I was it was something for me, because it's not a lot of characters like Zula for do it and try to be very interesting during the singing, during the dancing, and during the acting, and had all of these things inside your soul and your body.